I'm live. It is the 2nd of May 2025, and I'm reading The Invisible Way by Reshad Feild. It was published in 1979 and he passed away in 2016. He was in Turkey for a long time, then he came back to England, and now he is visiting Elizabeth, and she sent him to meet John. John has cancer, and they have gone to see him in Wales. This is chapter 14. Just after dawn, I heard John moving downstairs. It had been impossible to sleep, and I was still restless. When I went to see if John needed help, I found him in much the same state. His usual gentleness and humour were gone, and he was fussing over the slightest thing. I woke Noor, and between us we changed the dressing on his wound, which looked somehow deeper and more livid. John complained of the pain and seemed fed up with it all. Finally he asked to be left alone until Fordy had prepared breakfast. We propped him up with cushions and left him sitting by the window with a cup of coffee. "What's wrong?" Noor asked as we walked slowly down to the riverbank. "You and John seemed upset this morning." I shrugged. "I'm just nervous," I answered, "and it is obvious that John is going through something." "Well, I feel fine," she replied. "After all, this is only the third morning we have been here, so it's not surprising you feel odd with all that has happened. I thought we had been here for weeks until I looked at my diary this morning. It's crazy." "Has it only been 3 days?" I asked. "What on earth will it be like if the rest of our time together is as intense as the last few days have been? I don't know if I could take it." "Well, we're going to have to try. Both of us know the inevitability of John's death, and I know he wants us with him. It probably seems difficult because we are hardly used to him yet. In a way, it is as though we haven't really met. There has been no time for informalities. Just more and more teaching. I would love to ask him about his life, but I get the feeling that it is not the time. It seems all we are to do is to remain completely open and serve him as best we can. Whatever feelings I've had about his death, I have simply put out of my mind so that I don't dwell on them." "I wish I could say the same," I replied. "I just can't get used to the imminence of John's death. I have witnessed death before, but it was somehow different because they were all surprises. There wasn't this awful sense of waiting." The smell of fresh mushrooms being grilled wafted down the pathway as we walked back to the house. Fordy's bicycle, with its old-fashioned handlebars, was propped up against the gate, and there were fresh flowers from her garden still sitting in the wicker basket that was strapped on behind the seat. John was sitting at the head of the table, immersed in the newspaper. "Ah," he said, looking up, "did you have a good time?" "I had a wonderful 2 hours to myself in which I got a few inner things done, as well as writing some long overdue letters. You know, we are only free to go on when we have completed a project or a decision. However, your breakfast is getting cold, so help yourself to what you want from the sideboard. Fordy has everything ready." The tension we had felt passed, and we spent a wonderful hour going over the things that John had told us, clearing up much of the confusion that I had experienced. John seemed extraordinarily happy, and eventually I asked him to explain. "Well, these things happen," he said. "You know that. Sometimes you can put your finger on the cause, and sometimes you can't. Many is the time that I have been through similar experiences, only to find later that there has been some tragedy in the world, a plane crash, an earthquake. Something has happened or is about to happen, but this time I'm not sure. I feel better now, But if I'm completely honest, I can still pick up on something. What about you? He asked abruptly. The telephone rang noisily. It gave my nerves a tremendous shock after what John had been saying. I heard Fordy moved down to the passage to answer it. There was silence for a moment, and then I heard her talking rapidly in French. Her voice was agitated, and the conversation went on for a while. Everything was quiet over the table. John did not seem to take much notice and had immersed himself again in his newspaper. Noor and I looked at each other in the mutual understanding we were beginning to share. We heard the click of the receiver and Fordy's steps going back to the kitchen. John's newspaper rustled as he turned a page. The atmosphere was electric. Noor and I cleared the dishes together and took them back to the kitchen to find Fordy. She was looking out of the window by the sink when we came in, and it was obvious that she was deeply upset. "It's all right," she said, as Noor went to comfort her, "but I must speak to you privately, if you please." We sat down on the back porch together. "I have just had a call from France," Fordy began. "One of my relatives is desperately ill and has summoned the family. I am the last one and I must go. I have no alternative, as I come from a gypsy background and our ways are very clear. But last night I lay awake, and I used some of the old methods to see if I could find out what was in the wind. Mr. John is very close now. I knew it anyway. But now I don't have much doubt, and although he seems to be better and has plenty of strength, I don't think it will be long. Perhaps no more than 3 days. I would do anything for Mr. John," she said. "I never expected to leave when he needed help." Her voice was full, and it was difficult to speak. "I must say it is a funny way to end the time together." "Don't worry, Fordy," Noor said. "We'll look after him. You know that. There's Margaret to help, and you may not be right. You could come straight back then, after you've done what you have to do in France." She shook her head. "I am right," she said, "and I want you to get Miss Elizabeth. I promised her that if anything happened, I would telephone her." She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, collecting herself. When she spoke again, her voice was clear and practical. "You'll have to take things on now. The most immediate thing is the shopping. There's a meat pie today and fish for tomorrow's dinner, which has yet to be collected from the van by the post office. You'll have to get in all the rest of the weekly supplies as well. I have to go quickly, so I'll get the train to Southampton, where I can get a ferry. By the way, in Mr. John's bathroom cupboard, there is a box of tablets marked with his name. They are for emergencies only." "Can I take you when I go to get Elizabeth?" I asked her. "Thank you, but John will need to be here today when he hears the news. I'll leave the address pinned on the board by the kitchen window so you can't lose it. You will let me know if anything happens, won't you? I'll go and tell Mr. John now. Perhaps you could stay here and help with the dishes." She came out of John's study some time later, collected her things in the kitchen and walked down the pathway to pick up her bicycle by the gate. She turned back once to wave to John. We were standing in the doorway behind him and waved goodbye to her together. "So," he said, turning his chair round, "that was a surprise. Never mind. It is quite right that Fordy has to go. The Romanis are a proud race and they have strict codes. It is necessary that she be with her family." "Fordy told you to call Elizabeth, didn't she?" he asked. "I don't want to bother her, and I'm sure we can manage all right between us." Noor and I caught each other's eyes for a brief moment. John must have noticed as he questioned us disbelievingly. "Surely you've called Elizabeth since you left London to say that you've arrived safely, haven't you?" It was almost unbelievable, but in all that had happened in the last 3 days, we had completely forgotten to call Elizabeth. I guessed that John had realized this, but was just waiting for the right time to say something. You have called her, haven't you? He asked again. Because if you haven't, then you both still have a very great deal to learn. After all, she is the link in the chain for you just now. What sort of manners are these? I'm not going to say any more. It takes too much time and energy, and we have better things to talk about. But I suggest you call her now, and when you have finished, please come back and see me. He turned his chair around with a quiet finality to face out across the garden. Noor and I went back into the kitchen to finish the clearing up. If it hadn't been for the intensity of the situation, we would have had a very difficult scene. Both of us were on the verge of blaming the other for forgetting to call Elizabeth, and the guilt we both felt magnified the incident. It was Noor who saved the situation. All right, we both forgot. I'm ashamed of myself. But let's leave it now and call Elizabeth with Fordy's message. We tried several times to get through, but the line was always busy, so much so that we had it checked by the operator. It was so seldom that Elizabeth spoke on the telephone, and we wondered if the line was out of order. Finally, we got a ringing tone the other end. Yes, this is Elizabeth, she said. Who is that? Noor had dialed the number, and I was on an extension upstairs, so we could both speak to her. Good heavens, Elizabeth said. What happened to you? You might as well have disappeared off the face of the earth. In fact, I was just about to call and see if you were still alive. Now then, she said in her usual brusque tone, what is it? Well, first of all, I answered, we both wanted to apologize for not calling sooner. To be quite frank, time has gone haywire, and it was only this morning that we realized that we had already been here 3 days. It might as well have been 10 years as half a day. Toot toot. Time may seem odd when you stop thinking with the mind, but it is no excuse for not having manners. But enough of that. I think you've got a message, haven't you? Little by little we went on to explain what had been happening and the experiences we had been through, leading up to Fordy's announcement a short time ago. Elizabeth was silent on the other end. You see, Fordy felt that I should drive down to pick you up, I said. But John says that we can manage. What are we to do? Take no notice of John, replied Elizabeth. Of course I should be there. You say you have things to do today, so I shall expect you in time for breakfast tomorrow. It won't take you more than 4 hours at that time of the morning. If you leave very early, you can be here around 9 o'clock. In the meantime, if anything happens, you are to call me. Do you understand? And don't be asleep in future. You might forget where you're going. Just before the telephone was put down, I heard that deep rumbling sound from the other end. Elizabeth was laughing to herself. So, I finish this here, and I hope you have a lovely Friday.